Welcome.
I'm Natalie Clayton. In the last half year, I sort of accidentally fell into doing game journalism as a full-time career, but I did spend the last 4 years kind of studying to make big games. That didn't entirely pan out the way I'd like, and I sort of fell into different careers by chance. But I haven't given up on dev entirely. I've instead sort of moved into like making smaller, nicer games and a lot of the tools that Claire mentioned there. Making real commercially viable games is for people who can afford to spend the time and the money to do that. And going into other careers has allowed me to keep games as this weird artsy passion. But what I wanted to talk about here is a lot of people have this idea of like their dream game, like especially early on in your game career, you have the idea of like the perfect game that you want to make. And for a lot of people, this is like the big sprawling RPG, like the ones you played as a kid, or it's some technically insane graphical powerhouse. I kind of made my dream game last year. It was kind of, and what I kind of wanted to use this to talk about was how by not having low ambitions, but having a lot of intense limitations placed on what I was doing, I was kind of able to get into making that. So, I couldn't remember if this was animated or not. So Transit is a sort of 5-minute game made in Unity that's extremely personal. It's very reflective of a very specific point in my life where I was trying to access trans healthcare in Scotland. It's maybe a bit too personal, and it went over some people's head when we were showing it to the public, because we did have a school group come in, and at one point a 10-year-old girl came up to our booth, dragged all her friends away screaming, "Games are shit." So I want to kind of go into a couple of the ways and a couple of the inspirations and a couple of things that I was working towards that helped me really like dream small in a good way. So to start with, it was a student game, and that places so many limitations on you right from the get-go. I had to write a 6,000-word dissertation about the game, so I was going to have to make something that I would be able to talk a lot about. By the time I'd worked out what I wanted to do, I only had about 5 months to make it. And it was going to hopefully it was going to need to be graded well, so it was going to have to do one thing very well. What that meant was that I decided I was just going to make source mods. I can't code for shit, but exporting things from source into a standalone format is very hard. And while I can't code, I can put boxes together and put textures on them and make them look nice. So I spent a long time trying to find ways to make Unity work like that. But because of that, I was also trying to make the game work like a lot of my favorite games from my favorite mods from my teens. There's a really cool scene that came out of the source modding community, games like Dear Esther and the Stanley Parable, and sort of adjacent games like 30 Flights that were pushing the idea of first-person narrative games that were more about exploration of worlds than any actual gameplay. And finally, I was enamored with the queer art scene at the time, and I wanted to add my voice to that. These games are crunchy and they're dirty and they're unpolished, and they have such a clear voice that I wanted to add to that conversation. So fortunately, on top of being able to create this as a university project, places like Itch exist to put things up on and share weird, nice, small things. Itch might not be a great platform for making lots of money, but it's a great place for creating a community around games. And I'm glad that somewhere like that exists for myself and for others to create personal, nice experiences. Thanks very much. That's all I have.